Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Poolside Perspective. I'm Trey Farley. I'm here with Mike Farley, the host of the show. Let's talk about, what happened our past week. How was that for you?
Well, it was a tough week.
Yeah.
So,
Why so?
Saturday we had the celebration of life for Kevin,
Okay.
and that was a great event, and it was attended by his family and friends, his family biological and his work family as well. And it was good to talk to everybody and see everybody and tell stories about Kevin. So that was fun. And the premise is, we all miss him, and we're glad he's not in pain anymore, and look forward to seeing him again someday. So, but that was tough.
That is tough. On a lighter note, I had a wedding to go to, which was a lot of fun. One of my childhood best friends from like 6th grade and middle school, he got married, which is crazy because out of our like core friend group, he was like the last person anyone expected to get married, which was Hunter. So shout out to Hunter, Big Hugo, so we call him. Yeah, that wedding was a lot of fun. So we get to celebrate their life and seeing both of them grow together, which was a lot of fun. So
that is, yes, he would have been the one that I would have said was least likely to get married to the group. So,
yeah,
but there was a bunch of people there that now are engaged.
Yes, there are.
And so there's going to be other weddings coming soon out of that group.
Yep.
So
yeah.
That was
But today's episode we're going to be talking about the true crime.
That's kind of what generated a lot of this. So there was a question that's come up several times in our true crime discussions, and so we thought we would it was something that needed to be covered in a larger format. So is it a true crime to have a project without a 3D model of that project?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mistake to not have a 3D rendering before you sign a contract. That seems a little out there, but I know they used to, back in the day, just draw on a napkin. They said this is what you're going to get, and they were excited to see what happened, and then they'd be questioning, oh, is this what's happening in my backyard? I spent all this money for this? I had no idea.
So I never drew a pool on a napkin.
Heard so many stories of these legends doing so. I'm surprised you haven't.
No, I've never drawn a pool on a napkin. It wouldn't work on my drafting table. It's too soft a paper. But what did happen for a long time and still does happen today is people draw a pool, and it's called a two-dimensional drawing, and the fact that it's called the plan view. So if you're flying over with your drone,
yeah, bird eye view,
and you look down, that's what you're going to see is the outline of the house and the outline of the pool, and that is what you have to submit to almost every city to get a permit. Okay, so that's what's required. And so there are simple projects that can be done that a two-dimensional drawing, I think, would work.
Yeah.
And that means there's no water features.
Okay.
Because we're not going to build anything up.
I'm sure someone could argue that they could do a design without with water features on a 2D plan, but you're just saying in your perspective.
So how do you know what's on the sides of the wall and the materials that you're going to use? And so,
well, why would people sign a one-page contract? There's a lot of whys and wonders out there. So.
Well, and most people do these things because they thought they got a deal.
Ooh, okay.
Now, so the whole thing is, I'm saying that if it's a very simple project and there's not elevation changes in the yard, and there's not elevation changes on the project, then you could probably do a two-dimensional drawing. And when I first started, I would say 85% of my projects fell into that category.
Oh, wow.
Now, that was a long, long time ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth,
Yeah, because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, even though there's a lot of areas that are flat, there's still not probably many backyards that are just perfectly level.
Yeah, so, and I was working in the Sacramento Valley, and most things were flat. And the first time I got into trouble is when I went up into Vacaville, which was the foothills going up towards Napa.
Yeah.
And I did a project there, and it was my first hillside project, and I failed miserably.
Thrown to the fire, or rather, thrown to the hills.
Yes. So, but that drawing was just a 2-dimensional drawing.
Yeah.
Now, where things would start to change is, okay, we would do some elevations on the pool. You could do what was called a cross section. That's where you would take, in essence, like you cut through a layer of cake.
Yes.
And you could see the sides of the cake, and you would draw that on your plan. So you would show that this is how tall the wall is going to be and where the water feature is going to come out. And it was simple.
Yeah.
And so that would work.
It makes it easy to understand perspective because you get that vertical line.
Right. So, and you know, usually there was only one place you had to do that, maybe two. You had one through the spa, and you had one through, you know, where the water feature would be. So that would work fine. But you look at most projects today, and they're not that simple.
No.
So first of all is, as you said, there are a lot of places that are flat around here?
Not really.
There's a few places.
Yeah, there's a couple yards.
You know, a couple of yards, but I would say.
And to speak with unbiased, I mean, we're working with your jobs, and your niche is the hillside. So I'm frequently measuring hillsides, so that you get to put that into perspective.
Correct.
I'm not seeing every lot in Texas.
So, you know, but there are numerous projects. I mean, I'll go back 20 years.
Okay.
There was a lot of projects that were fairly flat backyards. Now, I have one that I'm working on right now, and that particular project, I talked about the retaining wall in the back of the yard was basically level with the porch. And they were like, no way. And I was like, well, we've shot the elevations. Now, what's deceiving in that yard is it goes down 18 inches and then it goes back up 18 inches. And so they're like, that wall's definitely higher than our porch.
Yeah.
And in all reality, I said, when we build the pool across there level, because most pools work best if they're level.
That way they're not ponds or waterfalls.
They're not streams.
Or streams. So,
yeah. So anyway.
It's a Monday.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's deceiving unless you have the accurate measurements. So one of the things that happens in yards is most of the time they're not flat because they need the water to drain out. So when it rains like a day like today, it hasn't rained in like 4 or 5 months. But today I think we got half of the 4 or 5 months rainfall.
Yeah, we're getting a bunch.
1 12-hour period. So there's flash flooding everywhere all over the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. They were listing it off as I was driving in. And I'm like, might be a shorter list if you say where it's not happening because they were talking about everywhere. Actually, except for towards our house. That was the one area which was.
Yeah, it ended like an hour ago or something like that. But a lot of people were under tornado watch and thunderstorms and all that.
So the thing is, the yards are graded to make the water drain away from the house.
Yes.
So they're typically not flat. So what I tell people is where the challenge begins is where you have about an 18-inch elevation change in a yard.
Okay.
That's where it gets hard for people to start understanding how things are going to work.
Yeah.
So for a 3D model to work and show people realistically what's going to happen, the measurements that are taken in the backyard have to be accurate.
Yeah, you need those topo lines to be on spot.
If those are accurate, then you get a true picture of what's going to take place. Now, take an example. I had a client the other day, and he did not hire me. And he did not hire me because he said you were too expensive versus the other people.
Okay.
Now, what he did want to do is show me what he got contracted. So he sent me the 3D model of it. And I said, well, that 3D model's not accurate.
Yeah.
Because what they did is they took measurements through the center of the yard.
Okay.
Going from the porch to the back fence. Well, the problem is this yard had what's called a cross slope on it. And what a cross slope means is if you take the measurements through the center of the yard, that's one set of dimensions, but the right-hand side of the yard's 2 feet higher than those dimensions.
Oh, wait, they didn't take measurements on both of the sides of the yard?
No, they just took it through the middle. That was it.
Ooh, that doesn't make any sense.
So then the other side was 2 feet lower.
Yeah.
So this yard had a 4-foot cross slope in it, but the 3D model showed just as it went through the back. So this patio on this side was sticking up out of the ground 2 feet.
Yeah.
And they needed retaining walls over on this side. And that's what they signed the contract on, was that it was flat like this.
Yeah, they didn't need walls.
They didn't need the walls on the left, and they didn't need walls on the right.
Huh.
And I said, that design won't work. And he said, yeah, we've ran into that. And I said, well, now you know why my price was more expensive, because I had those all addressed.
Yeah, you need walls to hold up the pavement.
Yeah. So walls to hold up the pavement over here, and walls on the other side to hold the hillside back.
Yeah.
So the challenge is, when you have a project and someone's coming out and doing a 3-dimensional model, they can make it look great, but that won't work in your backyard.
No.
So the real challenge is, how do you know that?
Well, I would just ask for the topos that they measured, because then you'd be able to get a good feel for what is supposed to be out there. Okay. And then you could, this person has obviously vetted a couple designers or construction companies, so he can be like, hey, these are the topos on this job. Do they line up with what you measured?
Okay, so you're saying, hey, show me where you took your topos, and if they went right through the middle and they didn't measure the two sides, the homeowner would know they were glaringly off.
Yeah, he would obviously see there's a huge issue there. But that's, 2020 hindsight. Obviously, he already signed the contract.
Well, it's not for the people that are listening.
Exactly, which y'all are getting a great insight into what you could do.
That's a good comment. Okay, so the 3D model is only as accurate as the information that you put on it.
Yes.
So the next thing that comes into play with a 3-dimensional model is the house.
Yeah.
Okay, what does the house look like in your model?
Typically, people are going to take the survey of the house, and then they're going to trace over it, scale it, make sure everything's correct, and then that's how they usually start the design.
Right. So are they going to measure the doors and windows?
They should. But, on the survey, it's not going to have all that typically.
So most people, what they're going to do is they're just going to snap a photograph.
Yeah, and guesstimate.
And then they're going to say, this kind of looks like where the windows are, and this kind of looks like what the door is, and this kind of looks... Now, is that okay?
It depends on the customer, because say you want someone that has a very symmetrical design, and we had one the other day where you walk in through the front door and something's going to be a centerpiece in that backyard.
Right.
So that's going to cause huge issues. But if you don't have that, and it's more of a asymmetrical, or just you don't really have a center line that's really specific, I guess you could get away with it. But typically there's something that's catching their eye to draw them outside. That's what good designers do.
Right. So there are a lot of homes that have a lot of glass across the back.
Yes.
So if it's all glass, then okay, maybe not a big deal.
Yeah.
However, got one that I'm working on right now. The big issue is, where do I put the barbecue?
Oh yeah, you want to be out of sight.
I don't want to put it in front of glass.
No.
Okay. And so the challenge is, if we didn't measure the doors and windows and we just guessed at where these go,
yeah,
and then we put the barbecue in and it's not ending up where it's supposed to be later on, then we've got a big problem.
Yeah, it could end up like the Spraggins jobs where we had the rock waterfall. We've covered this in the past before.
We didn't build this.
No, this was pre-existing. We knocked the waterfall out. But yeah, when you have windows like that, you buy it for the view, to see the backyard. You don't want it to be blocked off by some barbecue. You don't want to be staring at a stainless steel grill.
Right. The windows and doors are somewhat important. Like Trey said, we've got a center line. Like we talked about last week with Nick and the acrylic, that particular job, there was one thing centered on the door, which was the spa. The fire pit and the acrylic window was centered on the windows. And then the cross axis, everything was centered on the fireplace. So if we were off 4 or 5, 6 inches with some of those things, then we would have a problem. The other thing that's a real important thing to understand is a lot of people are using 3D modeling to create outdoor living spaces.
Yeah.
And so the elevation of the roof that is above the ground, where that comes in at, is important to understand.
So it's especially with like 2-story houses when you have windows to be in between.
We have windows in between, and we got to figure out how these roof pitches work. And this roof pitch might be lower than this roof pitch over here, and we're trying to tie something in. That's important to understand.
Yes.
So again, how would you know that they measured that?
You wouldn't. The only way I could say is you measure it yourself, and then you ask a measurement from them. But even then, you don't know if they're pulling that from the 3D or what they have.
Well, if they've got a 3D and they took measurements, you can ask them what the measurement was.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
While you're having a pretty much a tour.
Right. So what's important for you to understand with your 3D model is they can draw you a pretty picture.
Yes.
Okay. And it may look like it works. Case in example, the Cain residents.
Okay.
Okay. The Cain residents bought their house sight unseen.
Okay.
Part of the presentation for the house was a 3D model of their backyard. And the 3D model of the backyard, it showed retaining walls that were 3 feet tall.
Yeah, they're not 3 feet. Not at all.
They're 8 feet tall.
Yeah, I had to climb on the fence to put because I measured the top of the wall. So yeah, it was funny because I was like, I told you the measurement, and you're like, there's no way. And I was like, dude, in the video, because I always measure my measurements or videotape my measurements so I can go back and look and make sure they're correct. And I was like, look at the video. I'm climbing the fence halfway through it.
So what happens is you can check these things. Now, they didn't get to check it because they bought the house sight unseen.
Yeah.
So now when I went in and said, this won't work, he realized very quickly as I'm standing in the backyard, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
This is going to need a different solution. But again, you as a homeowner, to make sure that your 3D model is somewhat accurate, is you can ask for measurements on how they created their 3D model.
So I'm curious, did it not work because they were too close to the wall with the design they wanted to do or the idea they had in mind?
Well, no, it wasn't the proximity of the wall. It was the height, the change in elevation in the backyard.
Oh, okay.
So if you have an accurate 3D model, there's a lot of advantages you're going to pick up in this process.
Also, just having a 3D, there's so many customers that you can give them a set of plans. You can have the cross-section lines. You can have the bird eye view. There's still people that won't understand that. But
100%. What I tell people all the time, because I used to have people give me some flack and they would be like, well, I don't need the 3D model.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, you may not. You may, and there are a small percentage of people that can read a set of plans and understand what they're looking at.
There's a small percentage of builders, like really good builders, that can do that too.
Well, no, they can see it, but what they want to see is the overall. What Trey's referencing is we have builders that come in all the time, and they want to see the house done in the 3-dimensional model Megan does. And so the nice thing about it is they haven't seen it, and they're building the home, and it helps them to envision how. And it's not just, I mean, the architectural plans have sections of each side of the house, so that they have those 4 sides, so they can look at all 4 sides and see them. But to sit and walk through a model, okay, that's the coolest thing about the model.
Yeah, the tour area.
It gives you the capability to stand in a room, stand at the front door, stand at the kitchen sink, stand at all these different things and see what it's going to look like. And if it is, the model has been built to accurately represent your property, then it's accurate within an inch.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've had clients later be like, it's so amazing. It looked like the 3D picture you took. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's accurate within an inch. That's what that means. But most homeowners aren't going to be able to envision all those things.
No.
Okay. So, and I guarantee if one has some capability, the other one has no capability whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I'm going
Talk
to
about the customer's ability to understand the plans.
right.
And everything.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming there's usually going to be two people involved in a project.
Yeah.
Most of the time that's what's occurring. Now and then we'll get a single gentleman or lady that's doing a project, but most of the time there's a couple involved. And as much as one can see it, the other one won't see it at all. And they'll sit there and nod. I used to deal with this for a couple of decades, and they would sit there and nod their head and like they understood what you were talking about. And you'd be like, do you get it? And they'd be, oh yeah, I can see it.
Because
it's very
people don't
pretty.
want to, they don't want to be like the only one that doesn't understand.
And they're just like, everybody else gets this. And so I just must be, have a defect that I can't envision this. And the reality is most people can't see it. Okay. A small percentage can. But then the cool thing is when it comes down to like material selections.
Yes.
This is where this is priceless, and the fact that we'll do the 3-dimensional drawing. It'll show the house. It shows all the things. They can envision it now, but now we can go in and pick their materials, and we can change the model to accurately reflect all the materials that are going on the job. Yeah,
there's so many customers that have come in and they love certain materials, but we put them on the table and they can't envision it. And so we just, we update it and send pictures to them, and it does a lot better for them. So
now, okay, here becomes another problem.
What's that?
Okay. So we put things in the picture to help you understand what it's going to look like.
Okay.
That doesn't mean when we put everything in the picture, you get everything in the picture.
Oh yeah. So if we put palm trees or whatever, like landscaping or furniture, we're not going to go out and buy all these furniture pieces for you unless we specify that we're doing that. But that can become an issue.
Right. So the hard thing is there's certain things that the pool contractor is going to do, but certain things the landscape contractor is going to do, and there's certain things the fence contractor is going to do.
Yeah.
But they're all in the picture.
Yes.
So you can envision what it's going to look like.
I think the best thing for that is just proper labeling, because because we always talk about like what's included and what's not included from the front end of the process, so they can get ahead and find a landscaper or find some boutique furniture company or whatever it might be. But just it's just getting up in the front end and letting people know. But people do forget all the time. So being able to go back and look at it and seeing it's labeled on there, it's just easier to understand.
So one thing that we've discussed is when we send the contract documents, should we take all those things off? Because we do provide a 3-dimensional picture that goes along with their contract documents. Do we take all the things out that they aren't really getting?
Yeah.
Like, we're not providing the cable railing because the cable railing is being done with the homeowner. With the home builder when he's doing the porches. Or, hey, there's a screen around the pool equipment. Well, that's being done by the fence contractor.
Yeah.
If we take all those things out, then it would probably become easier for people to understand.
It would, for sure. Doing we do the snapshots where we get like a couple of the pictures on there. You would do one with the whole envision of the project and then remove everything else. That would make it easier. But I think the company that we work with is very good at line iteming certain items that aren't included. But it is a long contract because we're so detailed in it.
We got projects that we don't start for 1.5 years after we've done the design.
Yes.
And then we're building it for 1 year.
Yes.
And so, 2.5 years down the road, it was like, whoa, I thought you were doing that. Well, no, let's go back and look at it. So
yeah, because we sleep, in between.
now and then. So, but the material selection is really helpful for people to see it. It's also, as I alluded, it's really helpful when you have grades, especially when they don't all go in the same direction. So when you have a swale, and a swale would have a high point maybe in the yard, and then it goes to the sides and it's lower on both sides and goes out. That's really tricky because the grades on the sides go up and they go they go down and they go back up to create this valley that runs down the side of the yard.
Yeah.
And so as you transition through all that, if the drawing's been done accurately, then you know how to build everything so all the grades work out and there's not a surprise as you're going through that. Or yards that slope in one direction from the back corner down to the lower corner. I mean, there's all kinds of different angles that things have. In some yards, like remember the Pruitt residence, it went down and it flattened out and then it went back up. And then it went crosswise. It was high and then it went flat and then it would drop. There was no uniform grade in that. It was wonky all over the place.
Yeah.
But when we put the project together, it dealt with all those grades. And so it worked. So that was the fun of it. So
yeah, those crazy grades give you a great opportunity to make something special. That's for sure. Yeah. And I can speak from experience from measuring all those jobs. It's one thing to measure them, which is tricky when you got a lot of grade changes. It's a little bit of hiking, but on top of that, like actually drawing it out and measure, I still get confused sometimes. I need your expertise because it is really wonky.
Yeah, well, that's the fun of it's
crazy hillsides.
Crazy hillsides. They're never boring.
No, they're not.
So then also, when you incorporate the outdoor living structures with the house, then those pieces fit together. Also, a lot of landscaping can be helpful.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've done on a few projects where privacy was a really big deal is I've actually dropped in the neighbor's house.
Yeah, because you happen to actually design and build the house right behind them.
Well, I've also gone to Google Earth.
Oh, okay.
And we've actually traced on the houses that were around. And so then you can take pictures of the views and you can see second story windows. And then you can actually figure out. So I do this 2-dimensionally, but that doesn't help the homeowner understand it.
No.
So if privacy is a really big deal and it's really important, then that's something that can be done to help people understand the views from the neighbor's house. So, we did this with the landscaping to basically block those windows, and we use this and this and this. So it can be really helpful to understand.
It's awesome because when you have that house built, you can actually go in the neighbor's house and you can look through the window and see exactly what they're going to be seeing, which is really cool to see when they can't see anything.
Yeah. Well, look, all they can see is a tree.
Yep.
One thing about 3D modeling is there's a lot of different types of modeling, and there's one that's specifically used in the pool and outdoor living industry. It's set up that it works with pools and landscaping, so you can pick particular varieties of plants. So if you want to show an azalea, you can show an azalea. If you want to show a daylily, it's a daylily. If you want to show a crepe myrtle or a redbud tree, that's what it is. And so it gives people an accurate design so you can get a certain vibe and setting, whether it's very formal or it's very asymmetrical or it's very organic, you can get those feelings of the space. And some programs do that fairly well. Other programs don't do that well at all. But the one that we particularly use, there's 3 things that are pretty important, and that's fire, and that's water, and that's plants. So it does a pretty good job with those 3 features. Now, some people say it's a little cartoonish, but I'd rather have a very accurate cartoon than nothing at all.
Yeah, I think it's also people do say that just because we're talking about Pool Studio, and depending on the computer that's running the designs, it can change a lot because there's a lot of extra features and bells and whistles that can make it look a lot more realistic. But obviously, I think you're talking about SketchUp, the one that's a little bit more realistic. But I mean,
there's some that are very realistic on the house.
Yes.
I mean, so much so it looks like it's a photograph.
But then you have like the plants and stuff like that.
The plants don't look, in the water, not as much. And the fire is the one that looks the worst usually. Yeah. So, it's just kind of like it looks like a flame from a candle, and it's supposed to be, a fire pit, and, it just doesn't look as good. But for architecture,
Yes.
which is what their big concern is, it's a fabulous, presentation. So
It's give or take.
so there's some give and take here with the different modelings that you're using, but any model is better than no model.
Yeah.
However, I did see one this last week
Oh boy.
that somebody showed me a picture of, and I looked at it and I was like, well, they're showing lounge chairs in an area that's maybe 5 feet wide.
Oh, okay.
And the lounge chairs looked like they fit the space very well.
Yeah.
But it was not a very accurate 3D model. So scale becomes a very important thing as you look at things that somebody plops in, that if they make the lounge chairs itty bitty to make it look like you got a lot of space.
Oh, okay. Long. I was thinking wide. I was thinking like they were like really, really, really wide chairs.
No, they were.
I gotcha.
They were.
So they shrunk them down to make it fit the space better.
Yeah. So they put, a lounge chair on a 5 foot wide walkway and made it look like it was a 10-foot wide walkway.
Yeah, that's one of the things. So which is actually interesting you bring that up. So there's the 3D modeling, I think in my opinion, makes it so much easier to understand the idea of what you're trying to buy. Then on top of that is proportion. So there's two sides to that, I think. There's proportion where, say your house is really big, and then we design a pool that fits that house. And we had this happen the other day. A customer was like, wow, I didn't realize, because we drew it out on the ground, that the pool was really this big, because his house is so big. But
Big
then,
piece of property.
exactly. But then you could have the other opposite side of it, like you're saying, where you think everything fits, the function, everything moves really well throughout the space, and then you're eventually going to get it, and you realize you don't have room for really anything. And there's what is it? AR. So it's like virtual reality glasses you can put on with Pool Studio.
Yes.
And we haven't done that yet. We need to try it sometime, but you can pretty much take the design you have. You don't shrink the person at all. I'm pretty sure. So it's proportional to the person. So you'd be able to walk through the space and see the proportion. Be like, you could look over and be like, oh, that chair looks tiny, or this pool looks really big. Wow. So that's another feature that could actually make it easier to understand everything.
So there are a couple of things that people do for presentation wise.
Yes.
So I know that Regal Pools down in Houston, they have a screen that is the size of a wall.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Okay. So when they do their presentations, you're looking out, and the screen's not just a computer screen you're looking at. It's huge.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a more accurate feeling of the space, which is simply amazing. And there's more and more people that are doing very large presentations instead of, we use a flat screen TV and it's a nice size one. But, when you're talking about something that's 5 feet across versus something that's 15 feet across, it's a totally different feel.
Yeah. I think there's like a place where you can go where you could actually walk around like a big, like warehouse type deal, and you put the glasses on. And it's like actually for that purpose.
Yeah. So that's done with house plans.
Yeah.
So you can get a very accurate feel for the setting of a room and everything like that. But the AR glasses,
Or VR. Sorry, it's not
virtual
AR.
reality
Yeah,
glasses.
VR. Yeah.
I think would be really a helpful tool for some people that are going to look at stuff. But so the question in the beginning is it a true crime not to have a 3D model? And my opinion is, if you're dealing with a project that has a lot of details into it, I think that it certainly is for you not to understand the scope of what's taking place with it.
Yeah.
If it's very, very simple, then I think you could probably get away with not having it. I think if you have a hillside that's over 18 inches, I think it's crazy not to have a 3-dimensional model, because there's no way to understand the essence of everything that's going to happen. Now, some people are like, well, they gave me a 2D and they gave me a cross section and they did a sketch. And that's helpful.
Yes.
But the sketch is from one spot in the project.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. And it could be accurate. And I used to do those, and it would take me a day to draw up this accurate sketch and color it and, do a presentation. And so people could get a feel for what it was like. And that was the only things that you had back then. Now we can, literally with VR glasses, we can put you in a space and you can feel the space all around you.
We can even, get like some candles or something and put a fan up so you can smell whatever your backyard's going to smell like,
Oh, okay.
Play some music and make you feel like you're actually in a 4th of July area.
This is an investment you're doing on your property.
Yes.
And with an investment that you're spending tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, to not have that level of understanding of what you're going to have, I think is going to be very disappointing.
It's a mistake.
It's a mistake. And I've got numerous episodes that I know that it really helped people to understand what's taking place in the space and avoid confusion and have clear communication, which is the goal of a project, that we all are on the same page and we all are progressing together and we're all happy with what we're going to have when we're done. So anything else you can think of with 3D modeling?
No, I don't think it's a crime. I think it's a mistake, though, obviously. But there's like maybe a couple people, like if you have like a background and plans and it's just a single guy or girl, maybe they're able to like just do it. But I don't know. It doesn't seem really. I mean, the technology's there, so why not? Request that.
Right. So, what do you have a builder that doesn't use it?
A builder that doesn't use it?
Yeah.
I don't know of one.
I do.
Yeah, I don't.
So here's my suggestions.
Yeah.
If you got a builder that doesn't know how to do it, they can contract someone that can do a 3-dimensional model.
Oh, yeah.
So there's guys that make a living, and that's all they do is 3-dimensional models for builders that don't have that capability.
Are those like the people with Instagrams that have like the 3D models that look crazy realistic?
Some of them.
Yeah, because I see those all the time, but I never see like the actual like after photos of like, side by side. This is the model. This is new.
So
build.
There's those that develop the 3-dimensional model that it would never look like that in your backyard.
Yeah.
And that's a crime, I think, too. So that's
it's very misleading.
There's people that design things that can't be built in your backyard because you don't have the elevation to make it work.
Yes.
So, I mean, you have a flat site and they draw you a hillside. Okay.
Or you have a flat site, they draw you a sunken fire pit, a sunken cabana area, stuff that just functionally doesn't work at all.
Well, where are you going to drain the water to?
Exactly.
So it's a pretty picture, but it may not be buildable as it's drawn. Well, we did have a question that a homeowner sent in.
So the question, let's do question of the day, how do we get this question again?
It came in on Instagram.
Okay. So if you have any questions throughout this podcast, or you're wondering, like we talked about, should we remove all the items that we don't keep in a contract or just label them? You can reach out and let us know what you think. This doesn't happen without the viewer, the listener. So thank you for listening and watching. So just let us know what you think. But the question of the day is, what's the difference between vinyl lined pools and concrete pools?
And fiberglass.
And fiberglass pools.
Yeah. So that is probably episode in itself.
Yeah. The fact that we're getting to this at this time, we would be going on probably for like 3 hours at least.
Okay. So there are 3 types of structures that are pools typically built out. We have vinyl, which is basically a vinyl liner that's dropped in a hole and there's no structural shell that supports that. And there's pros of that installation.
And cons.
There's then cons. There's a fiberglass, and the fiberglass are the ones that you see craned over the house, and here's the shell of the pool, and they drop it down in, and boom, all of a sudden we've got the shell of a pool. Well, you still have to do a lot of other things after that, but it does eliminate the steel and the gunite process. And in one day you have a fiberglass. So, and then there's gunite, which is where we dig a hole, we do steel, plumbing, gunite, and then all the additional things. So these are 3 different structures: vinyl structure, fiberglass structure, gunite structure. After that, everything's the same. You still have your tile work and your coping work. Well, that's not
Your
true.
plumbing.
You don't have tile on vinyl or fiberglass. But you're going to have all these different processes, your decks and your water features and your equipment, all that stuff, electric, all has to still be done. Okay. So this, a lot of people are, do I choose one of these for speed? And I would say no, because there's not a lot of speed difference between these 3. Some people are like, well, do you choose one because you're going to save money? And in some parts of the country, that would be yes. You could save money on some different aspects. But here's what I'm not an expert at vinyl. I'm not an expert at fiberglass. I've done a lot of gunite, so I'm not going to say I'm an expert at it, but I have a very large knowledge base after 35 years. So I'm going to go and try to find some experts on these 2 and have them on the show so they can explain the pros and the cons of their different services that they provide. So that way you get the best information possible. So we can understand what the best thing is. So in this part of the country, we have tremendous soil movement. And with that tremendous soil movement creates very challenging structural aspects. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, most of the projects that are done here are gunite. There's very few fiberglass projects done. There's today very few vinyl projects done. If you go back 30 years ago, there was a lot of vinyl that was done because in certain parts of the country, you only had a gunite rig within so many miles. So once you got outside of, 30 miles outside of DFW, the gunite rigs wouldn't go out into the country. So if you had a pool out in the country, then you were going to have a vinyl liner pool. And so now, because of COVID, basically gunite rigs, or the whole state of Texas is just about covered with them. Yep. You can get a rig, and also finishes to cover the gunite are available as well. So there's very few vinyl jobs that I know that are being done in the state of Texas now. But in other parts of the country, there's some parts that are very heavy vinyl markets. There's some parts that are very heavy fiberglass markets. And there's, as in Texas, very heavy gunite markets. But we'll get that information for you because all of you don't live in Texas and you need information on what's going to work best for you in your area. So that's my commitment to help figure things out. But that brought up the thought process of there might be a lot of questions that you guys have that you'd like better answers on. So it would really help us to understand what some of those things are. So you as a new homeowner, you're going through this pool process and everybody's at different stages. And so as you're gathering information, what are some things that you might have questions about? Now, we have an Instagram account. We have a YouTube account. We have a website. Those all 3 are places that you can post questions. So
on the website, you can actually just directly ask a question. So if you don't really want your business being out there, I know the comment sections are public for Instagram and YouTube. You could just go to the website and ask that directly.
Correct. 100%. And so those are different sources for you to look at, and, we can try to do a better job of explaining. One of the things me and Trey were talking about is there's a certain process that people go through in figuring out, what they want to do.
Yeah.
And some of those things were covered when we first started the podcast, and they really haven't been talked about a whole lot. So we were talking about how we might have maybe a checklist or.
Yeah, we're talking about doing like some kind of like database situation that we could put on like the podcast, like certain topics, like say barbecues or whatever it might be, negative edge pools over here, whatever kind of design detail or just detail in general that we've talked about, making kind of like a checklist where we can put timestamps from the podcast, so it makes it easier, so you don't have to go listen to every single podcast to think like you need to know everything on that job.
But we like it when you listen to every single
We
one.
do, but it's obviously not reasonable. So having that information would be good, and we're trying to do something like that. We're just brainstorming before the podcast. So
yeah, one thing that we had a question about also is there enough pictures and video of the concepts that we're talking about? Predominantly, you're going to see those on Instagram. Some of it on YouTube. There's not a whole lot of that on the website. Would it be helpful for it to be there, or is there a better platform for us to put that information on so you can understand?
For the database, though, we'll need won't they need to send in like their email so we can direct them to the right place?
Well, I think if we made a list, what we were discussing is, if you made an email request for that list, then we could send it to you. And that way also we could communicate with you things that are coming up on the podcast as well.
Yeah. So that is the questions.
Well, that was a whole lot of information.
Oh, yeah. It was a lot.
In one episode. I don't know how I'm going to put a title on this thing.
And imagine if we try to answer that question of the day. Oh, we would have gone so long.
Yes. Anything profound and...
I like diving into the weeds of 3D modeling, and then that also, mirrored itself at the end of the episode as well, which was really cool to see that side and how we got in the details of the elevations of the pool floor, which is possible to adjust. So it's just maybe they didn't know that skill, or maybe they just didn't want to add that or forgot to. So I don't know. But yeah, it was a really cool episode, I thought.
Oh, there's lots of things that I think will be helpful for people in this process. But, and yes, you can lay out the 3-dimensional floor most definitely in the pool studio. So a lot of people don't want to do that because people don't understand how small their shallow end is.
Yeah.
And they want them to buy a smaller pool because he's probably have them all at the same size at this point.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people are trying to sell a smaller pool for cheaper. So, hey, it's good.
Make more profit. Yeah, I got you.
Well,
also be able to sign it.
Yeah, get the job. So anyway, well, we'll have a lot more to talk about next week. So if there's something in particular that you're interested in, this is our week that we can find resources on those. So hit us up on Instagram and YouTube, and we'll look forward to talking to y'all soon.
No question's a bad question. Adios, amigos.
Take care.